It's certainly unlike anything we've seen before. 25,000 National Guard troops gathered in Washington, D.C. for the inauguration of Joe Biden tomorrow at noon Eastern Time. It's a spectacle, really. No public uh, admission being allowed. It's totally different than anything we've ever seen before. We want to bring in Dr. John Lott. He's the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. You can always find out more about his organization at crimeresearch.org. Doctor, thank you for being here. You just came back from Washington recently. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. Is it really that big of a threat, or do you think there's a lot of showboating going on? What is this all about?
I just don't take this seriously. I mean, apparently back in December, the middle of December, the Biden people hired private security because at that time they were already claiming that they didn't trust the military and others to be able to go and protect them. So it's well before the recent things that have happened. Apparently, they've been screening the National Guard people, looking at their social media posts and looking at divorce records and everything else for these individuals. These are people that have fought for our country, that have been involved in many other, just the Biden people trying to signal that the country's out of control and that they just can't trust anybody. The irony is, the Obama administration that Biden was vice president for, they removed 195 top military people, and it looks like they removed them, which is unprecedented. And it looks like they primarily removed them based on their political affiliation, which, nobody's accused Trump of doing something similar to try to make sure that only Republicans are running the military. It's one of the reasons why Trump has had some of the problems that he's had with the military, because was run so politically under the Obama-Biden administration.
Sure.
Well, we've heard so many conservatives come out and say that they are concerned about being canceled. Now we're seeing this huge military presence after for the past year we've been told we want to get the military police off of the streets. We don't want them, that quote unquote military presence out there. Is this a warning to conservatives? And is the next step, if you're vetting out your military, is the next step going after individuals and saying, you are unhinged, we've looked at your social media, we're taking your weapons away? Because I know a lot of people have that concern.
I mean, just listen to the discussion that Democrats have been having. They've been saying that, 80% of the people in the National Guard likely voted for Trump. What difference does that make? Who's made those types of claims? These people have sworn an oath, and to go and say that they're a threat just because they voted for Trump. There's no evidence that I've seen that indicates that this is a threat. It's just part of this. I'll make one other point, and that is, look at what happened in the inauguration in 2017. I mean, there were riots. There were all sorts of violence. There was well over 100 people arrested. None of them were prosecuted. There were no claims that democracy in the media, generally, that democracy was somehow under threat at that time. But you didn't see Obama or Biden or Kamala Harris or Pelosi or Schumer or any other national Democrat going and condemning the violence there. And the violence that we had on the 6th, we had, 300 or 400 people that were involved. Immediately, yep. Trump condemned it. He condemned it twice that day, condemned it the next day again. People say somehow there's an equivalence. There's no equivalence. The Democrats still haven't condemned the violence that occurred on Trump's inauguration. And
or all summer long, for that matter. Yeah, I want to jump into one other thing here, John, before we run out of time, however, and you're exactly right about that. There's clearly a double standard, but I want to play on what Tudor said a little bit, taking weapons away from people if you don't like their social media score. Well, the Biden administration will clearly be the most hostile to the Second Amendment based on what they've said coming in than any administration in American history. And there's a whole list of things to be concerned about, but where do you look first as far as assaults on the Constitution and the right to keep and bear arms?
I'm very concerned. Yeah, no, I'm very concerned. They're going to make it as costly as possible for law-abiding citizens to be able to go and own guns. Bloomberg spent something like $125 million just in Florida, $600 million overall, helping Biden get elected. The Democrats control the Senate and the House. How far they go, I think it's largely going to depend on Joe Manchin. The senator from West Virginia claimed earlier on that he would not support eliminating the filibuster. But, he hasn't been a very dependable person in the past in terms of keeping his promises on these things. And I'm concerned that he'll fold again. And if that's the case, they'll be able to get all sorts of regulations through on pure party line votes. But even without that, there are taxes and fees and other regulations that they're going to be able to impose on law-abiding Americans that will make it costly for them. And, we just went through a year where people saw that the police being ordered to stand down, not being able to go and do their job, huge numbers of prisoners released from jails and prisons across the country. And people have realized that they ultimately have to be able to defend themselves. But that's not going to happen or be allowed under the Biden administration.
Dr. John Lott, thank you so much for being on today. It's interesting stuff. We're going to see where it goes. Steve, when I watch this, I look at them vetting these military folks. I hear for years them saying that the president is too pro-military. It makes me nervous that they're going to start to thin out the military and make the country more susceptible. It is a scary thought.